Francisco Santos, a restoration architect, was inspecting the foundation of the old Santo Antonio Church on a rainy morning in March of 2024. The weather was gloomy, with heavy clouds hanging over the city. He was there to assess the structural damage after a recent landslide had affected nearby buildings. His work required careful attention to every crack, every stone, because the history of this place was deeply intertwined with its walls. That's when his hand came across something unusual. At first, Francisco thought it was just another piece of fallen plaster. But when he looked closer, he realized it wasn't plaster at all. It was a small wooden panel, artfully concealed behind a crumbling wall in the corner of the basement. It was covered in centuries of dust and cobwebs, almost invisible. Curious, he carefully pried it open. Behind the panel was a small recess, and inside lay an old, worn leather diary. The diary was damp and smelled of mildew, but its binding seemed untouched, as if it had been waiting for its moment. What he found had been there for over 40 years. The diary's condition, despite the humidity, was surprisingly well preserved. The text inside was still readable, and most disturbingly, the diary, as it later turned out, belonged to a young woman whose disappearance in 1984 had baffled the city. This discovery forever altered a 40-year-old secret that had plagued the town's residents. Francisco had no idea that this ordinary morning would become the most unsettling day of his life. What was about to be discovered had remained hidden for decades, waiting for this moment. In a few minutes, a secret that was decades old would finally be revealed. The city would never be the same after this discovery. It was a harsh, windy evening in 1984 when Alina Pereira turned 21. She lived in a modest home on the outskirts of town, always eager to help her elderly mother. Every Thursday, without exception, Alina went to the Santo Antonio parish for evening confession. It was a moment of peace for her, an opportunity to unburden her soul and find solace in her faith. The church stood on a high hill. Its old stone walls had witnessed centuries, towering over the city that stretched out below. Twilight filtered through the stained glass windows, giving the interior a mystical glow. On that particular night, the air was cool, and the streets were almost deserted. Alina put on her best scarf and shoes, embarking on her familiar pilgrimage. She walked along the narrow, cobbled streets, hearing only the distant bark of a dog and the rustling of leaves under her feet. When she approached the church, its heavy wooden doors were slightly ajar, inviting her in. She entered, and the faint light of a single, flickering yellowish lamp illuminated the central aisle. The church was empty. Its usual warmth was replaced by a cold, eerie silence. The echoes of her footsteps were the only sound breaking the stillness. Alina approached the confessional. It was an old, bulky structure made of dark wood with carved details that seemed even more sinister in the dim light. She cautiously pushed the wooden door. The door unexpectedly gave way, falling off its hinges and pushing Alina backward. She fell, hearing a muffled crash. When she came to, she was in complete darkness. Shocked and disoriented, Alina quickly grabbed her cell phone and turned on the flashlight. She found herself in a narrow tunnel, its walls made of damp, mold-covered stone. There was a thin layer of clay on the floor that stuck to her shoes, and the echo of her own footsteps sounded too loud in the confined space. She began to move forward, her heart pounding in her chest. Every few feet, she found fragments of walls with fingernail scratches, as if other people before her had tried to escape from there. There were no candles, no voices, no mystical symbols, only the beam of the flashlight reflecting off rusty chains hanging from improvised corners. The air was stale and heavy, filled with the smell of earth and decay. Fear began to rise within her, cold and clammy, engulfing her body. She couldn't understand how she had ended up here. It was nothing like anything she had ever seen or heard about the Santo Antonio Church. She screamed, but her voice seemed swallowed by the darkness, eliciting no response. Several hours passed. It seemed like an eternity to Alina, but she couldn't be sure. She felt the tunnel widen, opening into a small room with a stone tomb in the center, still standing on old tracks. The tomb was empty, but there were dark stains on the door frame, as if someone had been transported there. Her hands trembled as she pushed the creaking door and climbed the stone steps into the church basement. She found herself in a familiar, but still disturbing place. The next morning, the cleaning lady found her, shivering and not fully understanding what had happened. But in her eyes was the quiet fear of a person who knew that she had been very close to disappearing completely that night. 39 years have passed since Alina Pereira's disappearance. Her story became an urban legend, a whisper passed from mouth to mouth. Over the years, the mystery of Alina Pereira became just another unsolved case, another grief for her family and a riddle for the city. But for some, the pain remained sharp, and the questions lingered. Detective Raul Mendez, who led the case in 1984, could never forget that night. He retired a few years ago, but Alina's case continued to haunt him. He often reviewed the records, trying to find something he had missed. Meanwhile, the truth remained buried deep beneath the Santo Antonio Church. At the time Alina disappeared, the church was under the leadership of Father Sebastian, a man known for his strict discipline and uncompromising stance on matters of faith. But few knew about his secret life, his pursuit of power and control that bordered on obsession. Behind the facade of piety lay a dark secret. Father Sebastian discovered ancient catacombs under the church, the existence of which was unknown to most. He considered them a place of power, where he could strengthen his authority over the flock. It was in these catacombs that Father Sebastian held people he considered lost sheep, those who, in his opinion, needed correction. He lured them into the confessional, knowing about a hidden mechanism that opened a passage into the tunnel. He convinced them that it was a divine path to redemption, promising them purification and a new life. Alina Pereira was one of many. Her faith was strong, and she easily succumbed to his manipulations. Father Sebastian used her naivety and devotion to lead her into the depths of the catacombs. However, Alina managed to escape. Her story, told to Francisco many years later, revealed the struggle for survival in this underground prison. She was not alone. There were other victims, some of whom had long lost hope. Alina, with her unbroken faith, became a beacon of hope for them. She organized an escape using her knowledge of the church and her sharp mind. But when she got out, she was alone, and her story was met with skepticism. No one could believe that such a respected man as Father Sebastian could be capable of such evil. His influence in the city was too great. Father Sebastian carefully concealed his crimes. He falsified records, intimidated witnesses, and used his position to suppress any investigations. He even spread rumors that Alina had run away with a lover to tarnish her name and divert attention from the church. His accomplices were several faithful parishioners who were blinded by his charisma and believed that they were serving a higher purpose. They helped him keep the secret, locking the doors of the catacombs, moving prisoners, and destroying any evidence. They were sure that no one would ever uncover their secret. The diary found by Francisco belonged to Alina Pereira. It became the key to unraveling the long-standing mystery. The diary was full of her thoughts, her fears, her struggle for survival in the catacombs. It also contained a detailed description of her escape and the names of other victims. Inside the diary were also several letters addressed to her mother, but never sent. These letters were filled with pain, but also hope. Francisco, shocked by what he had found, contacted Detective Elena Rodriguez, an experienced investigator known for her persistence in solving old cases. Elena was in her early 50s, and her career had been dedicated to finding the truth. She immediately understood the importance of this discovery. She had long heard rumors of mysterious disappearances related to the church, but she never had enough evidence to begin an official investigation. Now she had that evidence. Elena carefully read the diary. Every word of Alina was steeped in pain and fear, but also incredible strength of spirit. In the diary, Alina described the horrors she had experienced in the catacombs, how Father Sebastian and his henchmen held her and others captive, subjecting them to unimaginable suffering in the name of redemption. She described their motives, their methods, their ruthlessness. She also mentioned specific locations and details that could be verified. It wasn't just a personal testimony. It was a map to a hidden truth, Elena felt the weight of this secret on her. She knew that revealing the truth would cause a huge scandal and shake the city to its foundations. But she also knew that she owed it to Elena and the other victims to tell their story. She presented her findings to her superiors, and despite initial resistance, her persistence prevailed. A special team was formed to investigate the case, and they had new evidence at their disposal. Elena's diary became their guiding star. The anticipation of revealing the truth was growing. The city seemed to hold its breath, unaware of the bomb that was about to explode. Detective Rodriguez and her team worked day and night, checking every detail, every name mentioned in the diary. They discovered old records that appeared to have been altered and witnesses who were finally ready to speak after so many years of silence. Finally, at a press conference convened to announce the results of the investigation, Detective Elena Rodriguez took the podium. The room was full of journalists, relatives, and simply curious citizens. The tension was almost palpable. Elena began to speak, her voice firm and confident. She spoke about the discovery of Elena Pereira's diary, about the long years of silence, and about how the truth had finally come out. She revealed the whole shocking truth. Father Sebastian, the revered priest who had died many years ago, was the mastermind behind the terrible events. He built an elaborate network of tunnels and rooms under the church to hold people captive, those he considered sinners. He subjected them to physical and psychological torture, convincing them that this was the path to spiritual purification. It wasn't just a prison. It was a cult based on a twisted interpretation of faith. Elena Pereira did not disappear. She was kidnapped. She was one of Father Sebastian's many victims. In her diary, she described in detail how Father Sebastian lured parishioners into the confessional, where a hidden mechanism opened a hatch leading into the catacombs. She told about the other people she met there, about their despair, about their struggle for survival. She named them, providing detailed descriptions of their fates. When she found herself trapped, Elena found a way to help other victims. She devised an escape plan, using her knowledge of the church building and her extraordinary courage. She organized a group of 4 other prisoners who, like her, had retained a spark of hope. They worked together, using any tool they could find to weaken walls and doors. They acted at night when the guards were less vigilant. They crawled through narrow passages, avoiding light and sound. Eventually, Elena and one other woman, Maria Silva, managed to escape from the catacombs through a secret passage that led to the basement of the church. The other 3 were caught by the guards. Elena got out first and Maria followed her. When they reached the basement, Elena was so exhausted and disoriented that she collapsed. Maria, seeing that Elena was unconscious, did not dare to remain on the surface. She took Elena's diary, which she always carried with her, and hid it in a hiding place, hoping that it would be found someday. Then Maria returned to the catacombs to try to save the others, but she was also caught. Several former parishioners who were accomplices of Father Sebastian were arrested. Their testimonies confirmed every word of Elena. They told about how Father Sebastian controlled them, how he used fear and faith to make them obey. Some of them expressed deep remorse. Others still believed that they were acting for the good. Among those arrested was Carlos Mendez, Father Sebastian's former assistant, who was known for his unwavering loyalty to the priest. He was around 70 years old and had carried the burden of his conscience for many years. He couldn't die without telling the truth. When he was questioned, he told about what happened to Maria Silva and the 3 other prisoners. He said that Father Sebastian, learning of the escape, was furious. He ordered the entrance to the catacombs to be sealed and the remaining prisoners left there, condemning them to a slow and agonizing death. He had carried this secret for 40 years. They had threatened him, but it didn't matter now. The families deserved to know what really happened. His testimony was emotional and agonizing, shedding light on the darkest corners of the story. Those present in the hall, journalists and relatives, were shocked. Sobs echoed throughout the hall. Many couldn't believe that this could have happened right under their noses, in a holy place. The consequences of this revelation were staggering. The city was shaken to its foundations. The Santo Antonio Church, once a symbol of faith and peace, became a symbol of horror and deception. A full-scale investigation was conducted, revealing even more victims whose disappearances had previously been attributed to other causes. The police finally entered the catacombs. What they found confirmed the words of Carlos Mendez. The entrance was sealed, and inside were found the remains of Maria Silva and the 3 other prisoners. Their families finally received answers, albeit very bitter ones. The bodies were identified, and the families were given the opportunity to bury their loved ones. It was a moment of incredible grief, but also relief. They had lived in ignorance for decades, and now they finally knew the truth. For many, this became the beginning of the healing process, although the wounds were deep. Some of the surviving accomplices of Father Sebastian were sentenced to long prison terms for their participation in the crimes. Their actions were condemned by both society and church authorities. The Santo Antonio Church was closed indefinitely. Its future remained uncertain. Some parishioners demanded its demolition. Others insisted on its restoration and transformation into a memorial to the victims. The discussions were heated, but one thing was clear: the church would never be the same. Alina Pereira's family finally received confirmation that their daughter had not run away. This was a huge relief for them, but also a tragedy. Her mother, already very old, was finally able to mourn her daughter, knowing the truth. She received Alina's diary, which became an invaluable memory of her daughter's strength and courage. This story became a lesson for everyone. It showed how easily one can be deceived, how institutions can abuse power, and how important it is to never give up in the search for truth. The city began to slowly recover, trying to reconcile with the dark past that had been hidden for so long. It was a painful awakening, but it was necessary in order to move forward. After the revelation, the mystery of the Santo Antonio Catacombs became part of local history, a dark chapter that will forever remain in the memory of the city's residents. Alina Pereira's diary was transferred to the city museum, serving as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering. Her words continue to live, inspiring those who fight for justice. For Francisco Santos and Detective Elena Rodriguez, this case forever changed their lives. Francisco continued his work, but now with a deeper sense of responsibility, knowing that behind every wall there may be a story of its own. Elena, after retiring, dedicated herself to helping families whose loved ones had disappeared, using her experience and knowledge to help them find answers. The catacombs under the Santo Antonio Church were sealed, but they will never be forgotten. They serve as a grim reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath the mask of piety and of the importance of vigilance and critical thinking. Alina Pereira's story is a story of courage, of the struggle for survival, and of the indomitable power of truth, which ultimately always comes to light. It is a testament to the fact that even the most deeply hidden secrets cannot remain secret forever.